Hello out there in TV land. Thanks for joining us on another riveting episode of AGI. Anthony and Greg on Intelligence. I'm Anthony Moggio, and with me is Greg Transformer Prost.
Just all these movies that you're throwing out
Transformer.
there. My wife just told me that's one of her least favorite franchises ever. And I said, when did you watch Transformers in the first place?
GPT. Transformer.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a stretch. Yours was much,
you meant...
yours was much closer than...
Oh, boy, I didn't even get the AI reference.
I thought it was a stretch.
That's pretty sad, though. I'm
that
sorry.
was a
I'm
big
sorry
stretch.
about that.
I tried. It was way... I should have
Explain
brought
what that is.
a little bit in
We
there.
should go right off the bat. What's a transformer? The T in GPT.
Generative pre-trained transformer.
Yeah.
So that's the part where it takes all of your words, breaks them into tokens that we talked about before, transforms them, and then inputs them into the model.
That was a Google leap, I believe.
Yes,
that
I think so.
Maybe 10 plus years ago, and that's what got all this really started. It kind of changed the way AI interpreted data, I believe.
Yes.
And they gave it away to everybody.
And here we are.
Yeah. And
we wouldn't have had this podcast without it.
And Gemini's just, behind the other guy that has GPT in their name, That's it's quite amazing.
Yes. So in the last couple of weeks, we've had there's always something new going on in AI world, though I will say in general, it seems to have kind of slowed in certain aspects.
Agree with that.
The rapid fire of new models, I think what happened with Anthropic and that, I think that may have caused the other ones to kind of maybe slow that down a little bit.
Our last podcast, we talked about Fable 5 from Anthropic. Mm-hmm. This was a brand new system that they came out. They had Opus 4.8 instead of going to 4.9. They changed the name and then moved the number up to 5. Wow, a whole 0.2. But we had talked about it. We had a chance to use it just for a couple days. It was only available on your subscription plan through yesterday, June 22nd, and we talked about that. And it kind of blew us away a little bit. Definitely the amount of data you could put in is what we found more than anything else. It just seemed to be able to handle a lot more.
It was like at least 2 to 4 times more than 4.8.
Yeah.
Like it was actually at the point where, like, in 4.8 the model will do the work and that, but what happened in Fable 5 is when you gave it really, really complex tasks, it would start spinning up sub-agents, breaking off those tasks into different components and letting the sub-agents run it. So you were able to do things that you would have to do in big steps before, break off a chunk, do it, break off a chunk, process, break off a chunk, process. You could give it the whole thing.
Exactly.
It was doing the breaking off, spinning up the agents, handling all the parts, and putting it all together. And I never got to a point to hit a limit before they cut it off to everyone, and you couldn't use it anymore. But I mean, I used it nonstop for those 2 days or 3 days, whatever it was, and I didn't hit any limits on anything. I was throwing old stuff to it.
I was too.
Like, hey, this is what you did before. What do you think now? And it was like, oh no.
Yeah.
No. And it, it was finding.
We talked about strawberry. How many R's in strawberry?
Oh, yes. Yes. So it was awesome.
And that was a way to test it. We did the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. Go back to some earlier things we had done. You rerun it and like, okay, wow. And the way it came back and said, okay, the way it was done before, I understand that, but here's a much better way of coming about it, and it's just thoughtful. And so that was on a Tuesday, I think we had the podcast with
that sounds right, Tuesday or
John
Thursday.
Babensky.
Yeah.
And Friday they cut it off. They cut Fable off.
Which is interesting because on the Fable side, so you have the executive order from the president in the beginning of June, which says, all federal take the highest, most advanced AI models and use it to build some sort of benchmarking against cybersecurity for all of your departments and everything you do. Basically, cyber-wise, harden your systems, right? Yes. Find the vulnerabilities, fix the vulnerabilities. And then here we go, like 2 or 3 weeks later, you have this dumbed down release.
Yeah, you have to understand that, right? That was a dumbed down release that they kept the one that they said, hey, we can't release the whole thing. We're going to give you a dumbed down one.
And
Because they were worried about cyber crimes.
And that lasted 2 or 3 days, and then they're like, yeah.
Because even the dumbed down one could do cyber crimes as well. So,
yes. Which they all can do. And then everyone's been kind of quiet. Yeah. Like there's been any big releases on any of the other models. They're all just kind of like, ooh.
I just saw today, like Chat GPT, they were supposed to come out with 5.6 possibly this week, and they just delayed it.
But I think what that means, though, is because they're all competing and they're all training their models, but maybe it's just naturally at that point where now the current versions of the models are all kind of basically right at that same level. Yeah. Right? So they saw Anthropic was the first one to jump the gun, so to speak, maybe. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, wait a minute. What just happened to them? Well, we don't want that to happen to us, so let's just kind of hang tight for a little bit.
Crazy. But at the same time,
it's insane.
The day after they pulled Fable from the masses, a Chinese company came out with an open source system, so anybody can use it, anybody can mess around with it, similar to the way DeepSeek came out with a system that's really close. Certainly, it's at 4.8 levels, Opus 4.8 levels, which we still have, but caught right up. And just as important, Huawei, is that how they pronounce it? Huawei, they use Huawei chips. These are Chinese chips instead of NVIDIA chips, because we're not giving them NVIDIA chips. So they got lean and mean and said, okay, our chips aren't as good, but let's figure out how we can make our systems better to get around that.
More chips.
Yeah. Yes, more chips. And I think they did some design work and, structured some things. So, we think we're ahead and got these crazy things that are being pulled, and all of a sudden, an open source system is getting really close. And certainly, no matter what happens within the next 3 months, 6 months at a max, but certainly within the next few months, everybody's going to kind of catch up and have the same kind of system. So,
and that's
crazy.
And that's where. And I think it's lost on viewers and people in general is, and not to beat the horse on this one, but, we don't want data centers. We don't want this. We don't want these advanced processing. We don't want this stuff. But you don't realize what the alternative is. And you always say that, whatever country is talking is the one that's saying the same thing. We don't want, we don't want them to have the most advanced model. We need to be in control to be safe. Well, they're doing the same thing, right? China's no different.
They're thinking the
same.
They
don't want the U.S. to be number one in power. They don't want, they want to make sure they're maintaining it. So they're doing it the way they always do, which is basically undercut everything. Yeah. Because they just do it that way. Yeah. And
they're good at it.
Yeah, they've been doing it forever.
Yeah, so,
think of all the trade routes and things, bridges they've built all across the world, not even anything they own, but they own those assets and they built those trade bridges and they built those connections and shipping and stuff. And so they have influence over things. And then you have that big release on the tool. It's like, well, it just got tied back here for Anthropic, but do you think they're not going to tie the stuff back?
No. Well, they're not going to shut it down either. They're going to be like,
let
great.
It go.
In fact, if they had Fable 8 first, they may not have said anything. Right? They just give it to the government and they go and drop worms all over the place, for later in life here. So, crazy stuff. It really is. And we're just right there on the precipice of some really, really powerful systems that can take the advancement up. So just being able to crack any cybersecurity system in the world, and they continue to do so. So the NSA just came out and said they've been using it, and they found all kinds of vulnerabilities. Just amazing. And that, 2 weeks later, that they're still finding things. And so, and as we talked about before, that's the one they released. They have an even better one, Fable 6. That's
they were going to originally release that in January this year. That's what six months ago.
Yeah. So what do they have internally that's telling them, different things? And so one of the things we talked about early on was I follow sort of advancements in a couple different areas. One is energy. Just use it as a simple example. if one of these AI companies has the advanced AI system and they're asking it questions before they release and saying, hey, what can you do? And it says, hey, I got a better way of generating energy. Here's schematics for, a box. Build this and just plug in. Like, well, how does it work? Like, well, I can't explain it to you. It's a little complicated, but trust
just
me,
do it.
This is going to work, And so if you knew that there was really cheap energy coming, what would you do if you're ChatGPT? You stop investing in data centers, potentially. Let's say it came up with
power companies.
Yes, power companies.
What was it? Facebook built or is building around their was it 7 power plants to power their one data center?
Or like Microsoft buying a nuclear plant,
yeah.
That kind of thing. And even ChatGPT, what's his name, the CEO? Altman. So he's invested $300 and something million into a cold fusion system that, theoretically, if it can get it to work, would be free energy, unlimited. And they've already setting it up to attach it to a data center. It's already moving down that path. So they start backing away from something like that. Like, okay, we got a different way of coming at this. So, or, curing cancer. What would you do if you knew that, oh, man, we just figured a bunch of things out? You'd start shorting some of those stocks, just shorting the oil company stocks even. So
I think, though, and that is knowing how advanced these things are, but knowing also the timeline to do trials and safety and all that, I have in my head, like, I would say 95% of me says they've already figured it all out. And the other 5% says they're very close or they've figured enough of it out that we just have to get the trial parts done to see, is the assumptions it made actually do it, or is there more research we're missing for the assumption to be correct? But I think we're either in the we figured it out or we're like we've basically 5% almost have it figured out.
So what do you do?
Everyone's going to keep getting cancer, man.
Yeah. But I mean,
now the treatments are shorter. Go get a shot.
You go buy a medical company and say, we're going to give this to you, start producing this product or do this or find the people. Are they going to try and make money off of it that way? Or are they just going to give it away? Knowing that if they go buy a company today and by the time they get it figured out, it's 6 months later and everybody's caught up and all their systems, are curing cancer or whatever it is.
Well, I think even with the research, I think the fastest path is 10 years is what I heard by the time you do the trials.
Yeah.
With COVID, as you said, that only got approved faster because they've been working on mRNA vaccines for a decade before that. So that part was already done.
So here's an example. The AI says, hey, if I want to get this fast, I need to do it through an mRNA vaccine type program because they're already out there and the system's already in place. And here, tweak it a little bit this way, just like you've been tweaking, but here's a little bit of an advance or here's a different way of going about this. So, I'm and then the government. So they're talking to all these companies, and I'm sure they're in their faces saying, you get any huge advancement in weaponry or anything, we're going to take it over here. And maybe do what the Chinese have done and combine all these companies together and, hey, you guys all use your data centers. Let's come up with one big AI to rule the world, or however this is going to work.
Well, I think that was their Fed's plan, right? They wanted to start having ownership in all of these companies. And, we said it at one of our first podcast episodes, right? Like at the end of this, they're going to have to connect all of them together, and that is going to be how that's going to go.
Yeah, I don't see how you can't do it any other way, really. You'd almost have to. So, and, who wins and who loses, that's just going to be a crazy stock market at that point. Who
has all the data centers?
Yeah.
Private equity.
And maybe it's not data centers. I think we're going to look back years from now and say, man, look at that hulk of a giant building. Remember that data center build out? But the data center build out makes AI faster, so you don't need them anymore. Here's a different way of designing a chip. And that's one of the things that what we were talking about on
the data center. So that was just announced today, the Blackstone one.
Yeah.
So that was $30 billion investment. They're a private. I don't know them. I know Blackstone. They're private equity, I believe.
Private equity.
So
I think
I
they're
just,
largest in the world.
Oh, they're the largest in the
they're
world.
huge. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So $30 billion
close.
over the next 3 years to build out all 30 is for Japan infrastructure for AI-oriented data centers. Like that seems to be a lot.
And that's an interesting way to go about it.
We're just going to put $30 billion in Japan. Like I don't know what happened with that one or who the partnerships are. I just saw the headline that was today. It just came out. So
and you can see a country doing that, like Japan, saying, "Hey, we're getting left behind here. We have no control over our AI systems unless we build something ourselves." The Europeans have Mistral, and I think they're throwing everything at that as well. But yeah,
they're nowhere. They're not even in the top 5 million.
No, which is crazy that they don't have something like that.
But it's the regulation. That's why.
Yeah.
There's no. Well.
Yep.
I don't want to get into all that one, but that's basically the reason, right?
Yeah. Well,
if I'm going to build it, I'm going to build it in the easiest, less red tape place to build it, and that is not in Europe.
Yep.
No European Union involved here.
Yep. And this is all about speed. So
that's what it is.
And that's,
you got to beat the next guy. You can't wait 6 months. You can't even wait 6 months. You need to do it now.
And administration gets that. I think they do. Out of all this, I think they understand that we need to stay one step ahead, and that by keeping them away from the chips away from the Chinese that worked for a little while, but it's not working so well anymore. So I'm going to have to try something else possibly. But and we were talking about Google Energy and that kind of thing. So Google DeepMind, they have an AI agent called Alpha Evolve, and they're trying to. It's all about building new algorithms. DeepMind, Google's DeepMind. This was kind of one of the first AI.
Like a division.
Yeah, they bought it years ago. Dennis Sabas, I can't remember what his name is. He's a pretty famous guy. They're buying him and the company, and that kind of launched their machine learning side of things. Ability to throw data at it, and the machine can figure it out. So the protein folding, this is the same system.
Oh, that was out of the AlphaFold.
The AlphaFold. Right.
So the alpha piece, that's kind of their...
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's good at that algorithms, like that mathematical coming in and making it more efficient. And that's the folding of the proteins. We won't get into it, but it was an issue that was bothering new drug discovery, that proteins can, as they fold, they can fold into all these different types of shapes. I'm not going to get this perfectly right, but to anticipate the way they're going to fold themselves up was something that they thought, we're not going to figure out for hundreds of years. And so DeepMind, maybe 3 years ago, before all the ChatGPT release, the initial one, they started figuring these things out using these massive algorithms. So now they're using these to help data centers become more efficient, for example. And it's already working and saying, click this off, or, who knows how this stuff works. But it's figuring out efficiencies. And Google's chief scientists describe it as TPU brains. So that's instead of CPU, that's Google's system. TPU brains, or GPUs, helping design next generation TPU bodies. So saying they're using it to make the system smarter and more efficient and get the energy costs down. At the same time, they're ramping up the amount of energy they're using to expand these systems, and it's almost keeping up with one another. The efficiency gains recently have been counterbalancing the usage gains. And then other companies are starting to use it. A drug discovery firm got roughly a 4 times speed up in their discovery system by just dropping this Alpha Evolve kind of onto their system. So sort of new this way that they're dropping it out into the masses a little bit more. But power grid problem here. That's a big deal. There's a lot of inefficiencies in the way energy is transferred and moved and all kinds of things like that. So,
and fun fact, we still to this day have no idea how electricity works.
Yeah. Well, you don't know how AI works.
I
either.
mean, they're really, like, if you go down the rabbit hole and say, like, how does, we just know the laws around it, but there is no one actually knows how it actually works. It's a fascinating thing.
That one I'm going to have to.
If you get into the
talk to
higher
AI
level
on.
of it, it's really, like, the physics professors and all that, they're like, we can't tell you exactly how it works. It's fascinating.
Electromagnetism is the base case, right? That's
everything there, but
we're going to have to look at this.
it's fascinating. But
Cool.
I just pulled up from the Alpha Evolve just some fun statistics on the reports, which that's amazing. So they gave it a whole suite of open mathematical problems. And Alpha Evolve rediscovered state-of-the-art solutions 75% of the time and found improved solutions 20% of the time. So that's 95% of the time it either did it the way we knew how you were supposed to do it, or it found it better. And then I'm assuming the 5% is probably, it doesn't say, but I'm guessing it didn't do either of those or couldn't figure it out. And then the other one, the complex matrices, that was quite a while ago we talked about that, but that was where we were talking about the energy efficiency. Google was able to figure out on how to do matrix multiplication more efficient and dropped, I think it was 23%, if I remember.
The numbers were huge.
It was huge on energy costs.
Yeah.
Like the same stuff being run was 23% more efficient. And that's huge numbers, right? And that was like the first thing it found was like, hey, if you just do it this way, it works better.
Instantaneously, too. It's not like you have to rebuild it, the system, 2 years to rebuild it to say, it's like, just change the algorithm this way.
So it was amazing.
So when we're talking about innovation here, and this is what we're talking about, that, you start increasing speeds and you start increasing efficiencies of all these models by 3, 4, 10 times all at the same time. That's quite a leap in innovation and things that we're just not even thinking about.
And it compounds, right? I mean, that's like snowballing, right? Like little bits improved. You're like, oh, well, okay, so it did, one thing 23%. Well, I mean, it's 23%, but still that thing led to then the next thing, which then got 10%. Then the next thing got 10%. Yeah. So now all of a sudden between the start and the end, you're 400% more efficient, and you can do 4 times more, and then the cycle just repeats itself. It goes right back to the start and makes this a little bit better, this a little bit better, this a little bit better, and then now you're at another 400% or 300%, or it just keeps that loop.
Or a new system comes out a month later and says, take a look at this. Well, I'm going to add a few more percent onto it. It's not like it's not done at that 23%.
Right.
And just as we said again, it's not physical. So you don't have to wait to build something out.
That's the beauty.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's just
like, you mean if we just change this one thing, we can, we'll just change it. Okay, already done. And done.
Yes.
Amazing.
It is amazing. One other thing here, just Anthropic, they published something called the economic index. It's not really about the economy, like an economic index that I might put out. It's not a survey or anything. It's their actual looking at their own product. So analyze their own product, and it's kind of a leading indicator that way of how are things being done.
So it's having them look at their product and how
how it's being used.
How it's being used.
So 35% is coding. It's still the center of gravity, and that number hasn't really changed too much. But the bigger deal is that the coding is coming off the chat app, kind of the way we're doing it, and then to the API and using agents and that move here. So it says because API, why does it matter? API is where work gets automated. Chat is a conversation. API is a rule. The categories that were automated the most were business sales, outreach, and automated trading, which could be anything from investment trading to anything.
I've been so hesitant. There are so many AI, I don't know if you call it managers, portfolios, whatever it is, and like there's like kind of a bigger part than a little part of me that wants to I just throw like $100 in it or just to see what it does, right? Like I just mentally can't get my head over that hurdle yet.
But everybody's going to do this.
Well, then there's no point.
If everybody does it, then there's no point
If
anymore.
the AI
right?
is doing everything, who cares?
Right. So I just mean, as it gets smarter, it's going to be difficult not to listen to what it says.
And where's it creating this money from, right? If it starts getting, I mean, the money has to come from people or profits or something. It doesn't invent money. So,
Yes.
I mean, so these things are going to start outperforming people, and they probably already are and have been.
Yes.
So those funds or PE or whoever it is making way more, which just means it's coming from the people, not people. Whoever's not using it is
Correct.
who's paying for it.
Correct. And therefore, they'll start using it.
So maybe you still get 5%, but they got 20
today. Again,
Or
but once
something.
everybody uses it, then the price
even-
discovery and will be super efficient.
I can't
and
get my head around that stuff.
arguably, you won't have any markets left anymore to really mess around with. Hey, here's how it works. And look at some of these markets today with GameStop and some of these crazy meme things. That's just an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah.
And, AI won't allow that kind of thing, or 08 with, 0% down loans and that kind of thing. They'll say, nope, that's crazy. Don't buy that. Don't invest in that. Here's why this is so dangerous. Let me explain it to you like you're in third grade. So let me pick something else for you. And in fact, innovation is going to change so many businesses out here. Let's find the ones that are a little more ring-fenced, waste management, and they still got to pick up garbage until the robots show up, they got another 5-10 years or something. I had somebody just send me, a buddy might send me something, say, hey, you've been talking about this, and somebody just made a statement that not pharmaceutical companies, but, software companies, SaaS companies, that
software as a service.
Yep, software companies, and they've gotten beaten up, and stocks have come back a little bit here recently. And he was basically saying, look, with all the contracts in place and the cash flow, it's already the contracts and cash flow that's already in place, like a 4-year bond would be safe. It's going to take a bit, but a 10, 30-year bond, I don't think that's going to work. And so he sent it to me, say, hey, you've been talking about this, I thought you liked this. And I sent it back. No, what he gets wrong is when those bonds mature in 4 years, they reissue bonds to pay off the old bonds. They have $500 million in bonds that mature. They don't have $500 million in cash to pay those bonds. They issue new bonds. They roll these bonds all the time. It happens all the time. Or if they don't want to go out longer, they'll still issue commercial paper or something really short.
Because they're using that money.
Correct.
They wouldn't have issued debt if they had the money. And
Correct.
the money is being invested. So, there's not $500 million.
It's like a revolving
sitting-
credit kind of a
okay.
program. And so after 4 years, they're going to have to issue another 5-year bond, say. If I'm looking forward at 4 years and say, oh, this is the end of it, I'm not going to be able to issue a new bond. You're not going to be able to pay off the old ones. So bond market, man, is way out into the future and thinking about that. And so that stuff is going to start showing up today, not 4 years from now necessarily. So I thought that was just an interesting tidbit that the bond market, drives debt, drives the capitalist system. The reason why our companies are able to grow and build these data centers is because they're borrowing money, and in the bond market in a huge way. They started with all their cash on the sidelines, and that's why the economy's doing so great, because all that cash that Google and all these companies had sitting on the sidelines, they're pumping it into the AI market, and now they're starting to issue debt. NVIDIA's issuing debt. Even SpaceX came out after doing that big equity raise. Now they're doing $20 billion in debt, and they're expected to do a couple $100 billion in the next 3 or 4 years in debt.
NVIDIA? You said NVIDIA's issuing debt?
It is NVIDIA. Yeah. No, SpaceX. SpaceX.
Oh, okay.
I think NVIDIA's,
But even
possibly.
SpaceX, like these are like the top companies. They have more revenue and money and cash theoretically than anyone else. So of all the ones
they spent it all though.
Of all the ones that should not need to issue debt, that is because isn't NVIDIA, like I know they're one of the top.
I may have misspoke there on
maybe
NVIDIA.
SpaceX. I know he wants to be on the as quick as possible.
Google, Microsoft, all these guys are going to issue
They're the
debt.
top companies, right? And if you look at like the market share of them, like they're huge. And for them to still need money for as big as, I think Microsoft, like they've been around forever. They're everything. They're in all the software. They're in.
Well, their profitability, cash flow is massive anyway.
And just to think, like, companies like that are still issuing debt, like, that's amazing.
The idea
that
is
is
to
amazing.
stay ahead of everybody else.
Wow.
That's the idea. And even somebody like SpaceX, hey, while we got the momentum, issue debt. Let's get as much cash as we can.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. That stock just hit below the issue price today.
Dave Ramsey would not approve.
I think it bounced back up, but Dave Ramsey.
He would not approve. Bad Google.
Yeah.
Bad SpaceX. No debt for you.
Yeah. So the world's changing quickly, and these guys are spending a lot of money building the exact same product right next to one another, kind of like a railroad. We keep saying this over and over again, but it's true.
It's going to be the airline industry. It's going to be the auto industry.
Yeah.
It just repeats, right? What did we have when the autos came out? There were hundreds of car companies, and now we're down to, I don't know if you even call it 3 American ones anymore, but 2.5. And then same thing, the railroads consolidated. They consolidated. Airlines consolidated. Spirit's gone now.
Fiber optics,
consolidated. Everything's consolidated. Pharmaceutical companies consolidate, buyout, merge, acquire, merge, buyout. Banks. But at least look at your banks. Yeah. Credit unions, same thing. It'll be the same thing with the AI. We have all these different ones now, and pretty soon it'll be, this one didn't quite make it, so we just kind of merged it into this one, and this one just kind of merged and bought this one, and now we're competing. Now it's every country's top 2 models are fighting the other country's top 2 models, and
amazing.
It's a weird BattleBots episode.
There you go. Crazy stuff. So we're trying to keep you guys informed about what's going on here. And speaking of that, I think the second half, we're going to give some more practical usage.
We're going to dive into some usage and examples, grants,
we're done
applications.
With the news and end of the world.
Yeah, end of the world. And on that bombshell, if we make it to the next episode, which is as quick as I hit stop and restart, we'll see you. If not, well, the AI has taken over and there's no point. So there you go. On that one, as always, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you. Stay tuned for another riveting episode coming up shortly. And we'll catch you at the next one.